Okay, so I don't usually get in front of the camera, but with everybody screaming that Trump is the reason we do or don't go to war, it is not that simple. And this is out of South Korea, just so you can hear the different things that people are saying, because I don't know, everybody thinks that mainstream media is gospel. They listen to them for their own opinions. They don't go out and find the information and the truth and then add to it with whatever they're hearing, with, listening with half an ear to the, brainwashing mainstream media. Let's take a look.
Take on the current situation following North Korea's biggest nuclear test to date. I'm joined now by Bong Young-sik, Research Fellow at Yonsei University's Institute for North Korean Studies. Professor Bong, thanks for coming in.
Good morning.
So first of all, in your mind, what is North Korea trying to achieve here? Is it solely about ensuring its survival, or is there something else going on as well?
Well, in the eyes of North Korea, those two goals are not separable. Possessing nuclear capability and fire and attack United States and other countries at will with its ICBMs mounted with a nuclear warhead is the only assurance North Korea can get in order to maintain its survival. So those two purposes are interlinked.
Have they been threatened?
And just put it into context for us then.
They do the threatening.
How big of a deal is this particular nuclear test, the sixth by the regime? There's still some doubt about whether it was actually a hydrogen bomb, as Pyongyang has claimed. But it still seems like this is a serious technological step forward.
It's a significant technological step forward. There's no question about it. But if I may give you a good news first, then this is not a classical H-bomb, hydrogen bomb that the United States Soviet Union invented in 1950s, which has about 1,000 times bigger explosive power than regular atomic bombs. But according to the own estimate by Korean government, then the explosion in the sixth most recent nuclear test by North Korea is at least 5 times bigger than the explosion in the fifth nuclear test. So now you're dealing with about 10 times more powerful atomic bombs that were dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Good news!
And another reason for concern, especially for South Korea, is that you can say that, North Korea has not mastered the re-entry technology or the miniaturization of nuclear warhead to be topped on the ICBMs with a long range. But North Korea can just instantly mount a nuclear warhead on Nodong missiles, which can attack South Korea and Japan. South Korea and Japan are already within the range of nuclear attacks by North Korea.
It's an extremely dangerous situation. But let's take a look at the international reaction. President Trump has been using some typically strong language. He said just a few hours ago, we'll see if the US attacks North Korea. He said fire and fury, locked and loaded, and even accused South Korea of appeasing Pyongyang on Twitter the other day as well. What do you think this all means? And also, as a sub-question to that, do you think the Trump administration has a clear and defined North Korea strategy?
Answering your second question first, no. The Trump administration doesn't seem to have a very clearly thought out and tailor-made North Korea strategy, considering all these haphazard and confusing remarks by President himself and major members in the cabinet in charge of foreign policy and national security, which gives a very mixed signals to its allies and North Korea as well. So North Korea must have thought that all these flamboyant rhetorics of fury and fire, lock and loaded, are basically pompous and empty threats.
Flamboyant threats?
And South Korean government made it clear that it will do everything in its power to stop the possible occurrence of another Korean war on the peninsula.
That's right. Move.
The very premise of the North Korea policy by Trump administration, the maximum pressure and maximum engagement, is not viable in the eyes of North Koreans, because when military actions are not really on the table, all options are on the table, but some options are not available. So North Koreans do not have any reason to be afraid of
That's what they're telling
United States and South Korea to take military
it.
actions. that's not in the cards. So North Korea goes ahead with more ICBM and nuclear tests.
And let's turn to China then. Very important to North Korea, biggest trading partner by far. Has this issue reached a point now where essentially Beijing has no other option but to play a much greater role in squeezing the regime's finances?
Right. I would say that China would agree on, participating in the bigger squeezing action by international society on North Korea after the 6th nuclear test. But that does not mean that China is ready to abandon North Korea. Because for China, North Korea is kind of a stone in the shoes, like Taiwan is for China. So why do you want to, scrap your very effective strategic heart vis-a-vis the United States? So China will participate in the international sanction after this nuclear test, but that does not mean that China will be on the same page with the United States, South Korea, and Japan in terms of doing everything in their respective powers to, strangle North Korea.
Yeah, it's not in China's national interest to see a complete collapse of the North Korean regime, it's fair to say. In regards to South Korea's response, President Moon Jae-in finds himself in a pretty tough spot at the moment.
This is not a good season to be president in South Korea.
Yeah, that's right. But he said that this latest nuclear test is going to further isolate North Korea, but how do you further isolate the biggest outcast in the world?
Right. This monk is already on a strict diet, right?
Yeah.
So that reveals a very sad, harsh reality that South Korea has to deal with. South Korea, unfortunately, does not have independent capability to, initiate major change of behavior on the part of North Korea. So rather than trying to be on the driver's seat, when South Korea does not have the car key to drive, South Korea needs to take time to build its own strategic asset and political influence to set the agenda that will be satisfactory to all parties involved.
And finally, we are unfortunately running out of time, but we know it's hard to predict what North Korea will do next, but we'd like to know, in your opinion, what you think might happen in the coming weeks and months. Do you think we're going to see more provocations, another ICBM test, another nuclear test? Or do you think this nuclear test was the last in a series of big provocations that the regime in Pyongyang will use as a kind of bargaining chip? Now, look, we need negotiations, direct negotiations with the United States.
On this nice Monday morning, I have to leave you with the bad news. North Korea will continue all the provocations and continue to test ICBMs and nuclear weapons because North Korea will only agree to have diplomatic talks with Washington after it will have completed its ICBM and nuclear weapon development in order to negotiate with Washington from the absolute position of strength.
And quickly then, you don't foresee any U.S. strike on North Korea at all, military strike?
No, that's highly unlikely because the flip side is too high. Washington does not seem to be ready to risk another war after it experienced two wars, one in Iraq.
Okay, guys, I'm just going to cut it off there because I have too much of a background noise.
President Trump.
So, anyways, yeah, it's not just Trump.